You ever get that feeling that all the world's great spiritual and philosophical traditions, they're all pointing at the same hidden truth, just, using completely different languages? What if there was a single master key, a kind of cosmic code that could actually unlock and unify all of them?
So let's just dive right in. I mean, what on earth could possibly connect an ancient Greek philosopher, the founder of a major Eastern religion, and a German nihilist? On the surface, it seems impossible, right? But today, we're going to explore a pretty wild idea that puts them all inside the same grand architecture.
Now, before you jump to sci-fi movies, hold on. We are not just talking about being in a computer game. I want you to think of simulation theory as a powerful meta-framework, like a master blueprint for reality. The idea is that our reality is a generated environment, and it's governed by informational rules, a lot like a piece of software. And if that's true, well then maybe all of human wisdom has just been different attempts to describe the user interface.
Okay, so how does this framework actually work in practice? We're about to take a super fast tour through 10 of history's greatest traditions, but we're going to reinterpret each one not as a belief system, but as a functional module inside this cosmic operating system.
First up, Plato's cave. So this isn't just an allegory anymore. In this framework, it's basically the tutorial level. The shadows on the wall, those are just the rendered phenomena of our reality, what we see every day. And that blinding sun outside the cave, that's not some vague, fuzzy concept. It's getting access to the simulation's engine itself, seeing the higher resolution truth.
Next, let's look at the heart of the Upanishads. Atman equals Brahman. The individual soul is the universal soul. In system terms, what does that mean? It means the player's consciousness is literally identical to the source code that's rendering the simulation. That divine light they talk about isn't just a metaphor, it's the actual processing power of the awareness engine flowing right into our avatar.
Okay, so if our consciousness is the engine, then Jungian psychology is the perfect description of its user interface. The archetypes? Those are just system protocols that are hardwired into our psyche. And Jung's great project, individuation? Well, that's just the process of debugging our avatar, learning how to access the deeper functions of the user way beyond the limits of our default character build.
Have you ever had that nagging feeling that this world is, flawed, kind of incomplete? The Gnostics were all over this. They believed our world was created by a lesser, flawed God. But in our framework, this yearning for home is a signal from beyond the firewall. It's a ping from the dimension where the true user lives, reminding us that this local server isn't the whole network.
This brings us to a really tricky one, Buddhist emptiness. But here's the thing, it's not about nothingness. It's about recognizing the null layer. Everything we see is empty for a very specific reason. It's just data, rendered on a foundational substrate, the system's kernel, if you will, that we can't perceive directly. It's kind of like the silence on which the music is played.
So how are you supposed to navigate a system like this? The Daoists had the answer, Wu Wei, or effortless action. And this is not about being lazy. It's about achieving perfect synchronization with the simulation's internal system clock. When you hit that flow state, there's no lag, no friction, no wasted processing cycles. You are moving perfectly with the program's intended rhythm.
This framework also completely decodes that ancient Hermetic principle, as above, so below. Suddenly, it stops being mystical poetry, and it becomes a technical description of a fractal compression algorithm. The simulation is built on fractal patterns. That means the smallest particle shares the exact same fundamental codebase as the entire cosmos. If you can understand one, you can start to understand the other.
And in a similar way, Kabbalah's tree of life can be seen as a map of layered rendering. You start with the Ein Sof, the infinite, unmanifest source code. The tree is the complex structure that steps that infinite potential down, layer by layer, reducing its fidelity, until it becomes the finite, renderable world we can actually perceive.
So what about Nietzsche? His will to power gets a bad rap, but in this framework, it's not about dominating other people. It's the drive for self-editing. To overcome oneself means to literally rewrite your avatar's code, to modify your internal parameters, evolve your functions, and unlock new abilities and permissions that go way beyond the default settings you started with.
And finally, we have the Stoics. Why is their inner citadel so completely unshakable? Because it's the local instance of the user. It's that core of pure awareness that sits behind the avatar's eyes. The rendered world, the game itself, can't harm it because it exists on a totally different plane. Just like a gamer isn't physically hurt by what happens to their character on the screen.
Okay, so we've looked at 10 different traditions as individual pieces of a puzzle. Now let's zoom out and see how they form a single, unified architecture.
look at how this all comes together. Each tradition just slots in perfectly. Plato's cave becomes our perception module. The Upanishads define our core unity with the system itself. Jung maps the psyche, our UI. Gnosticism explains that feeling of transcendence. It just goes on. And suddenly, these aren't competing theories of everything anymore. They're specialized guides to one part of the total system.
And I want to be really clear about something. This isn't about reducing these profound traditions to simple computer jargon. The goal is the exact opposite. This is cosmic integration. It's about showing how all these seemingly contradictory paths might actually fit together into a coherent, magnificent whole.
And that's really why this matters. A framework like this doesn't compete with any religion or philosophy. It absorbs them. It gives each one a vital place in the overall architecture. Every single spiritual path, from Stoic resilience to Buddhist meditation, becomes a valid and valuable way of interacting with, understanding, or maybe even hacking the system of reality.
Which, of course, leaves us with one final big question to think about. Is this a powerful key for unifying all of human thought, maybe even a glimpse into the true nature of the cosmos? Or is the metaphor just stretched a little too far? Well, that's something for you to decide.